Hello and Happy New Year. My name is Diane, and I didn't read that many books in 2025. I think I ended the year with 15 books having been read, and I also DNF'd a lot of books throughout the year. It was just a year of trying to read a lot and not managing to do that, or reading a lot of things that just weren't really hitting the mark for me. So putting them down, trying other things. I was definitely reading throughout the year. I just wasn't finishing very much throughout the year, which is kind of a shame, but also I did read some books that I really enjoyed, so I'm not too bothered about it. I did a lot of other things throughout the year besides reading. Because of that, I also was posting pretty sporadically throughout the year. I would like to read more regularly, first and foremost in 2026, but also post a bit more regularly because of that. If I'm reading more, then I'll have more books to talk about, obviously. All that being said, I made basically a yearly TBR of a lot of the books that I would like to prioritize and get through. I pretty much always set the goal of reading 52 books in a year because that works out to one book a week, and that to me feels very manageable. I obviously don't always manage to hit that goal, but it just feels like a very achievable goal, and even when I don't achieve it, it doesn't really bother me because I never feel like I'm that far behind, even when I only read 15 books out of 52. Anyway, I made a list of 52 books that I would like to get to in 2026. This list that I'm going to give you is more than 52 books because I had planned to read a few more books and also a number of graphic novels in December, and I decided to just not do that and enjoy the holiday season instead of trying to bump up my number of books read. So I think there's about 65 books, give or take, on this list. So let's get into it because we've got a lot of books to mention, but here are all of the books that I'm currently planning to read in 2026. Hopefully going to read, but we'll see how this goes. The first four are books that come out in 2026. I think these all come out in the first quarter, so not too much weight on any of them. The first is Strange Animals by Jared K. Anderson. This is about a character who trips on a curb, falls into the street, and sees a city bus coming towards them. And then all of a sudden, in the moment where they should die, they are suddenly back on the sidewalk alive. And to try and explain this, they seek someone out and become an apprentice, and that's really all I know about it, is the initial part of the story. The next book is The Wicked and the Damned by Rebecca Robinson. This is the sequel to The Serpent and the Wolf. I tried a little bit of romantasy since it's everywhere right now. It's really not my genre. I'm not a big romance reader in general, but I ended up really liking that book. I was very pleasantly surprised with it. So I am excited to read the sequel. I like the world, I like the characters, I like the magic system, and I'm excited to see where it's all going. The next is The Book Witch by Meg Schaffer. This is about a character who is a book witch, and she can go into stories, and I think her job is to go in to the books to solve something irregular in the book that shouldn't be there. And then in her real life, her grandfather and a book go missing, so she has to solve that mystery outside of the books. And there's rules to being in the book, what you can do, what you can't do, how long you can be there, things like that. So I don't know if they're going to be fictional stories within the story, or if we're going to be visiting familiar books. How much time we'll spend in books, we'll have to see. And the final book that comes out this year that I'm planning to read is probably my most anticipated book of the entire year. I've been waiting for it for so long, it feels like, and that is Storm Over Camelot by Sophie Keach. This is the third and final book in the Morgan Le Fay trilogy, which is an Arthurian retelling centering around the life of Morgan. And I really like the character. I really like Arthurian retellings. I love Sophie Keach's writing. and I've been really enjoying this series. So ever since I finished the second book, I've been waiting for any bit of news about the third book, and we finally have a title, a cover, and a release date. So I'm very excited for this one. All the rest of these books that I'm going to talk about are already out. A few of them I've already started. And one of those is The Witch's Boy by Kelly Barnhill. I've been about a quarter of the way through this for quite some time now. I'm really enjoying this story. I just haven't really prioritized finishing it, and I would really like to finish it and see where it's all going. Next is The White Octopus Hotel by Alexandra Bell. I don't really know that much about this. I think it's a historical fantasy. I think it might be set during two different timelines. I actually don't remember the plot of this. I was offered a copy of it and wasn't sure if I wanted to read it, and now I'm finally going to give it a chance. But that's really all I know, is it's something historical, something fantasy. I think it follows two characters. I think it might go between two timelines. I'll have to read it and find out. The next book is The Scholar in the Last Fairy Door by H.G. Perry. I think this one is about a girl. Something happened to her brother, and she has to, the fairies cursed him or something, and she has to she's trying to find a way to help him. I don't remember much about this, but it sounded interesting. It's how I go about a lot of books. I don't like knowing the full premise, because then I go into books with too many expectations. So I just like to know the gist of the book, and I'm pretty sure that's what this one was about. And the next book, these are the last of all the standalones that I'm planning to read, is The Fairy Morgana by Louisa Morgan. I read one Louisa Morgan before, and I really enjoyed her writing. That was The Ghosts of Beatrice Bird. And I also really like Arthurian retellings. I really like Morgan, as I've already said. So I would like to see her version of Morgan. And I don't really know much else about this other than it's written by Louisa Morgan and it's about Morgan Le Fay from Arthurian legend. These next books are the first books in a series. I've been trying not to start too many series as I've been making my way through other series that I've already started, but I'm ready to start some new ones. The first of these is Malice by John Gwynne. This is the first in The Faithful and the Fallen, and it seems like a setting I would enjoy. It's a large cast of characters, which I typically enjoy. I've heard really good things about it. It seems like the type of book I would really like, and I'm hoping I'm not going into this with too high of expectations, but I am looking forward to finally starting this series. This will be my first book by John Gwynne. The next is The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick. I started this ages ago, and I had kind of given up on trying to finish it. It's very slow moving for how long it is, in my opinion. And while it's interesting and I was enjoying it, I wasn't really thinking about it whenever I wasn't reading it. Sometimes when you put a book down, you're really excited to get back into it. And I just would put this one down and then never really think about it until I decided to pick it up again and start reading it. But I want to finally give it another chance to try and actually finish it. The next book is The Dwarves by Marcus Heights. I've read, I think, the first chapter maybe, and I enjoyed it. And all I really know about this is it follows a dwarf. I think he lived away from other dwarves. He lived with humans, and then he goes back to the dwarves for some reason. He's sent to them. This is a book that I own physically, and I have just had it for a really long time, and I would like to finally read it. I only have a few books on my shelves that I haven't read at this point, and I'd like to finish them all this year. And the next is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson, and this is another one that I put on my TBR when it was coming out, and I've since, for some reason, maintained interest in it, but I could not tell you a single thing about it. I actually have no idea what this book is about, but I must have liked the premise when I added it to my TBR, and it has somehow stayed there. So I'm gonna try reading it, find out what it's about. Then I have The Once and Future King by T.H. White, which is I have it as a collection, but it's actually 4 books, and this is an Arthurian retelling, and this is one that I physically own, so I'd like to finally read the rest of the books on my shelves. As I've said, another series that I already own is The Chronicles of the Black Company by Glenn Cook. I have the first collection, which is the first 3 books in that series. These are both series that I am expecting to really enjoy. Mostly because I own them, I feel like I can read them whenever, which means I never read them. So I'd like to finish these this year. The rest of the books I'm going to talk about are sequels or the remainders of series. I have a couple longer series on here that I would like to finish this year. The first is Before We Forget Kindness by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series about a magical cafe that can let people travel back in time to speak with someone that they've lost in whatever way they may have lost them. And they only have so long as it takes a cup of coffee to get cold to have that interaction. The next I was kind of on the fence about reading, and that's Queen Demon by Martha Wells. This is the sequel to The Witch King. Why can't I remember the title? I think it's The Witch King. That book took me so long to get into. The story, I feel like it came together in a satisfying way, but it took quite a while for me to feel comfortable in the world and invested in what was actually happening. Kind of want to see where it all goes. I might end up DNFing this one, to be quite honest, if the writing is hard to get into like I found the first book. The next is another book. I think I read 200 pages of this, and I own it, and I've had it currently reading for ages now, and that's The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. I'd like to finally finish it. It's just, I've been in the middle of it for years at this point, and I don't know why I haven't finished it, but I'd like to finally do it. Next one is The Hexologist, A Tangle in Time by Josiah Bancroft. This is the sequel to The Hexologist. I enjoyed that book. I don't think I could tell you much about it at this point. I didn't find it very memorable, but I did find it enjoyable. So I'm going to at least give the second book a try. Whether or not I finish it, again, remains to be seen. In a similar vein, I have The Daughter's War by Christopher Buehlman. This is a prequel to The Black Tongue Thief, and I remember reading that book and really enjoying it, but I could not tell you a single thing about it at this point. Then I have Silverborn by Jessica Townsend. This is the 4th book in the Nevermore series, which is a middle grade series. I don't really read middle grade, but so many people had recommended this to me that I finally tried it, and I think they're really fun books. Next I have The Boy on the Bridge by M.R. Carey. This is the sequel to The Girl with All the Gifts, which I liked, but there were some things about the story that I really didn't like. So I've been kind of on the fence about this, but I think there's only these 2 books in that series, so I'd like to read this and explore a little bit more of this world. Then I have books 2 and 3 of the Library series by Mark Lawrence, those being The Book That Broke the World and The Book That Held Her Heart. I liked the first book. I've read 2 other series by Mark Lawrence, and I enjoyed them both. And I just haven't really thought much about this series since the first book came out, and now that the rest of the series is out, I can just read through the whole thing. Then I have the final 2 books of the Edinburgh Nights series by T.L. Huchu, being The Legacy of Arniston House and Secrets of the First School. And this follows Ropa, who can communicate with ghosts, and she uses that ability to solve mysteries. She mostly communicates messages between ghosts and the living, and I really like the character of Ropa and following her and seeing what sort of trouble she's in and trying to resolve. And I have the rest of the Odd Thomas series by Dean Koontz. I really love the first Odd Thomas book especially, and I stopped reading the series in the middle. I have Odd Interlude, Odd Apocalypse, Deeply Odd, and Saint Odd left to read, so I stopped right in the middle, and I'd like to finish this. Then I have the rest of Ender's Saga, which I'm also including the Ender's Shadow series in this. I read the first 3 books, so I still have Children of the Mind, Ender's Shadow, Shadow of the Hegemon, Shadow Puppets, Shadow of the Giant, Ender in Exile, Shadows in Flight, and The Last Shadow to read. I know there are different orders that people recommend reading the series in. the way that I said the titles is the order that I'm planning to read them in. There may be a better way, but I'm probably just going to stick with this one. And the last novel series I want to finish is The Saxon Stories by Bernard Cornwell. I've heard this series called a few different names. It's the Last Kingdom series, but I've only read that first book. I have watched the show, and I feel like, at least with the first book, the show was pretty true in an adaptation to the book, so it felt the show was a little too fresh in my mind for me to finish reading the series. Now that I'm more removed from the show, I do want to finish reading this series. And I have quite a few books left. It's a pretty long series. Those are The Pale Horseman, Lords of the North, Sword Song, The Burning Land, Death of Kings, The Pagan Lord, The Empty Throne, Warriors of the Storm, The Flame Bearer, War of the Wolf, Sword of Kings, and Warlord. Quite a long series. And the last of the books on this list, which are the graphic novels I was going to read in December and just decided not to, and just throw them into 2026 with all these other books. I want to finish rereading the Revival graphic novel series by Tim Seeley and Mike Norton. The TV adaptation of this came out this year, and I really enjoyed this graphic novel series, and I really enjoyed the show, but it made me want to reread the graphic novels because there are a lot of details that I've forgotten over the years. And similarly, I want to finish reading the Resident Alien graphic novel series. I've read the first 2 volumes already, and now that this TV show has concluded, I am enjoying seeing how much was changed in this. I feel like a lot more was changed in Resident Alien. Those are all of the books that I'm currently planning on reading in 2026. I know it's quite a few, especially coming out of a year where I didn't read that much, but hopefully I'll get back to reading more regularly. I am excited to finish a lot of these series, start some new series, read a few standalones, not that common in fantasy, unfortunately. Let me know if you've read and enjoyed any of these that I should really prioritize, if any of these are on your TBR as well, or otherwise if there's just anything you're really excited to read next year. I'd love to hear about that. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.